alcohol,
sex,
food,
gambling,
drugs,
internet,
love.
spending.
There are a million addictions, and everybody is recovering from something. Here to help, it's Recovery Wednesday with America's original radio psychic, Dr. Linda Salvin, along with addiction specialist Candy Finnegan from the Emmy Award-winning television show Intervention. Candy and Dr. Linda are two gals who know recovery because they are in recovery. Listen as they help you bring your recovery to the next level, help you solve your thorniest issues in ways you may have never imagined. Together, they bring you the tools and techniques that bring balance, serenity, and recovery to your life, and the tools you need to find solutions for healing from the disease of addiction. Candy teams up with Dr. Linda to share their over 60 years of combined experience dealing with all areas of recovery. In her decades as a metaphysical clinician, Dr. Linda has helped thousands of people worldwide solve problems on the air and in person with her insights and solutions. So pull up a chair, turn it up, and get ready for a visit on the path to recovery with the one and only Dr. Linda. And now, live from Los Angeles, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Linda Salvin and Candy Finnegan.
Hi, how you doing, everybody? This is live. I am Dr. Linda Salvin. Welcome back to Recovery Wednesday. Candy, unfortunately, may not join the show today because she's having technical difficulty with her, what is it? Not the laptop, but the little tablet, and she can't sign on. So I just texted her to see if maybe she can call in and help me co-host the show as she does every Wednesday right here on the Psychic Solutions podcast, Recovery Wednesday. Recovery Wednesday is about recovery from addiction. Everybody's addicted to something, whether it's love, sex, booze, pills, travel, porn, reading, drugs, smoking. Of course, food addiction is big. We're all addicted to something. The phone number is going to appear on the screen momentarily. And if you're out there, I'd love for you to call in at 561-623-9421 and ask questions about your own family or your own state of recovery or what it means to help somebody who may need recovery. You might be the codependent one. You may be the enabler. You may be the one who slipped. You may be the one in relapse, which is the topic of today, slip and relapse. And what is the difference between the two, which is a big difference. But too bad Candy's not here to give you the better definition than me. Candy, of course, is a very famous interventionist, has been on the TV show Annie's Intervention. She did that for 10 years. Me, I'm a psychic healer and a medium. I've been on radio for 30 years, and I help people internationally with my gift of insight, and I have a Candle Magic line. I do integrative health with certain nutritional products, but I'm also in recovery for 38 plus years. So I can assist people because I've been there, done that, and I have been sober 38 and a half years. I've been off smoking cigarettes 23 years, sugar and flour 13 years. So I've cleaned out my body, and I'm very sensitive. We're all sensitive. Nobody's immune to being sensitive unless they're so wound up with fear, anxiety, and anger that there's that wall. Well, the wall can come down. It can come down. But it takes practice and it takes trust. I need that phone number again, Rebel, please, because I really want to see if I can get some activity. So 561-623-9421 is your number to call in and talk, please, because this is a talk show, even though on this particular network, nobody understands that this podcast is live and I do take calls. What is the difference between slip and recovery? What does that mean? Well, it means if you're sober, or if you're abstinent from certain things like sugar, flour, cigarettes, pills, alcohol, sex, whatever your behavior is that is no longer in practice for the moment, and then all of a sudden you slip, you give in, you start the old behavior. Somebody who's been not drinking for a month, a day, as long as me at 38 plus years, if I were to drink something, let's pretend that this bottle of oil was actually Kahlua for me, because Kahlua was my favorite with vodka and whatever I mixed it with back in the school days. But if I've been sober for over 38 years, not that I was a down and out alcoholic, I was a functioning drinker. I would drink on Thursdays and weekends with my friends or people from work, but I always functioned. I wasn't gutter drunk. I wasn't bedridden. I was not craving the alcohol that I had to go get a bottle of something. That was not me. No. But there are people that are so dependent on the alcohol that they literally go through DTs, the tremors and detox if they don't have it in their system. Same thing happens with nicotine. The same when you're stopping smoking. The same thing happens with sugar. When you're withdrawing from sugar and carbs, the body goes into shock. What is a slip? A slip is like, okay, I haven't had a drink in 13 years, 18 years, 40 years, whatever. And all of a sudden I had a drink of wine. That would be considered a slip in the 12-step program. I slipped. The relapse is different. The relapse would be if I continued. Okay. I wanted more and more and more. And then it was day after day after day, or on the weekends, or I went from 1 glass to 2 glasses, from 2 glasses to a fifth of something, and a fifth of something to a constant purchase of something. That's where the relapse comes in, and the mental and emotional and the physical addiction takes over. And it's ugly and it's horrible and it's painful and people are in denial. I know Candy and I have been referring to a friend of ours whose daughter is ill as an addict and will not get sober and continues to mess up her life or get busted or get put on holds, but denies the fact that there's a problem. And the problem is often, from the addictive perspective, your problem, her problem, his problem, never my problem. We, as the addicts, do not want to accept responsibility. Or it might be a custom for families. It might be indigenous to the environment, the culture, the state, region, country, city you're living in. I just got back from Alaska. As many of you know, I went away for a week and a lot of shows were replayed. But I was talking to somebody up there, and the level of alcoholic behavior is out of control because a lot of people don't know what to do, or they said the white man introduced the Eskimos and the indigenous to alcohol. And if it snows for like 6 months out of the year and there's no sunlight, there's nothing else to do but drink and have sex or eat or probably play poker. I don't know what they do all the time, but it can get boring. I was up in a very remote area north of the Arctic, where the miners had been and where truckers had been when they were building the pipeline back in the 70s. And the people there were talking about, it was on a video actually, a documentary that I watched about the alcoholics versus the cocaine addicts versus the pot smokers that all worked on the pipeline. Everybody would get loaded after a long day out, either underground or above ground, building this 813-mile pipeline that went from the Arctic all the way down to California to refine the oil. But the people, the men, the women that worked, the trucks, the line, whatever capacity, at the end of the day, they needed relief and some type of way to relax, and it skyrocketed. It would be a full research project if I wanted to take that on, to really go and look at the demographics and the statistics of what happened to that population back then. Whether it's the pipeline, whether you're in a remote area, whether you're in someplace indigenous like Alaska, and you get bored. So drinking, using, smoking, eating, whatever becomes habit to fill the void within. Again, a slip, as I just said, Candy will be with us. She's calling in. A slip would be like if here I am 38 years and all of a sudden tonight I go out and have a Kahlua or I have a wine and okay, I broke my sobriety. But tomorrow, God willing, I would be able to get back into not drinking or smoking dope or a cigarette or whatever my thing would be and keep going. The relapse would be I keep using, I keep drinking, I keep eating, I keep tooting, I keep whatever I'm inhaling, and I keep going till I bottom out again. Let's bring Candy on. She couldn't make it visually, but she's here audibly. So let's have her join and help me out here. Candy, hi, welcome back to Recovery Wednesday. It's been a while since I was gone and you've been busy. How are you?
Well, I'm very frustrated, but I'm good. Thanks.
Well, you're frustrated because that
I'm
little
sitting
tub
here
didn't work.
sitting here looking at the ocean.
Oh, you're in
Things
Malibu.
could be, yeah.
It must be beautiful. It's gorgeous outside.
Woman where I work, they, as a matter of fact, she had to leave really suddenly, and I came out to cover because they're having all their cameras fixed, was because one of her original kids that she does one on campus with relapsed
Okay.
and is in the hospital condition.
Okay, you can explain all that. First, you can explain the type of school you're with the kids that you're helping through addictive personalities and recovery. But the topic today is, what is the difference between a slip and relapse? And I just mentioned briefly, like if I had a glass of wine or a Kahlua or I took a cigarette and I just did it for like 1 day, 2 days, but I didn't go on for the next 20 years. That would be my slip. The relapse is when I really dive in and I'm out of control. Why don't you take it from there and redefine it from the professional perspective? Also, explain the school you work with these kids.
Well, it's not a school. It's there's 2 organizations. There's a nonprofit called One on Campus, and it's a sustainable program that's anywhere between 1 to 3 days a week, usually at lunchtime for an hour or after school. And it's a substitute for suspension. So if you come to One on Recovery for, let's say, 8 times, then you get your suspension off of your school record. And if you have more than 1 suspension, it's very difficult to get into college.
Wow. Okay. So these kids start to take it seriously.
Yeah. So it's a second chance, let's say, leadership club. And there's been huge success with it. We're in the Malibu school and Santa Monica schools and Costa Mesa schools and the Newport schools. And Lynn has been diligently doing this for many years, and I've been involved with it for about 4 or 5 years. And out of that came a new chance retreat that resets these kids. Instead of sending them to treatment, you come to Alter the Course ATC retreats, and you have a week of it's therapy, but there's no therapist. It's therapeutic.
What's the success rate with these children, these teenagers? They come in, do they actually turn their lives around most of the time and get going so they can graduate?
We had last year, we had 2 kids who graduated from Loyola Marymount who were absolute messes. And another one at Vanderbilt and another one at Arizona University. 2 kids at Arizona University that are graduating this year.
That's amazing.
Yes,
that's great.
They turn themselves around and they become ambassadors and leaders at the school. And it's usually pot, but it's been stronger drugs and vaping.
I keep forgetting about vaping. Thank you. I keep forgetting about vaping because I'm so far removed from it. But I believe I defined properly, but I'd like you to take it over and go back and redefine the difference between a slip and a relapse. You're more on the clinical end. You're more on the practitioner end with all of the addiction and substance abuse. So talk about that for a moment as to what is it when someone says, oh, I slipped and I'm in relapse. What does that really mean to the person, the addict?
Well, I listened to you, and I think you defined it pretty well. I think a slip is somebody that had, no matter whether it's 6 months or 6 years or 36 years, whatever, you have a moment when all else fails and you pick up again. A lot of times you might not pick up the same drug or alcohol, or if it was alcohol, you might go to pills. But you can't think of any other way other than anesthetizing yourself to get out of it. It could be 1 or 2 days. That's what I consider a slip. A relapse, you have relapse behavior long before you use, usually. And that consists of not calling a sponsor, not going to meetings, finding fault with everything and everyone.
That's what I
Oh,
just
I
said.
don't like
Blame, blame, blame. Yes, I said that before you
Yeah.
got here. I was saying that they blame everybody.
Yeah,
Correct.
I heard you. You know, I think that, and you can stop a relapse. You can stop relapse behavior by pointing it out and saying, wait a minute, you know, why are you, you know, setting yourself up to use? Why are you setting yourself up for failure? And they'll go, I'm not. I just don't happen to like that woman, and she never calls me back. And you know, it's like, it's stinking thinking. And that's what you get into when you're not doing what works
That's true.
for, you know, yourself and other people. So, and then at the end of it, usually you have no choice psychologically or spiritually, but to
It
use.
takes over you. Yeah,
So,
it takes over. It takes over. It takes over.
we've heard nightmares about that. Years and years and years and years and years. Some get back and some don't.
Correct. And it's those that are willing to surrender or take direction one more time. I used an example of a friend that you and I share whose daughter has been almost like unmanageable and refuses help, refuses treatment, refuses to get sober, refuses to admit there's a problem. When you have a real definite case like that, which is extreme and it's hard, what do you do when you know that person is more than just addicted, almost psychotic in the behavior, and you're trying to help, and after a while, even the helpers like yourself or the family, they give up? What do? You become powerless over helping
Well,
the peers.
I don't
Slipping
anybody
into-
to ever give up. I think you have to either take legal strategies, which is a conservatorship, to a mental health conservatorship to get them in. If they are that psychotic, then you call the police and they'll put them in a 5150 or they'll take them to jail. You know, you can't give up, but you just have to try different strategies. Now, you know, the girl you're talking about, she's been to treatment several times.
Right.
But it's the only way she can really get her dad's attention. So I feel that a lot of that has to do with behavioral, and she needs behavioral modification. She needs to go someplace for a long time, get out of the house, get out from under holding her father hostage, and get a life. She's a very talented, very lovely girl.
I need to take
she
a
is
call.
absolutely ruined both of their lives.
Finish talking. I need to take a call and step away. I'll be right back. Just take over. I'll be right back.
Okay. So one of the things about relapsing that's so important is if you see somebody that you care about that's in recovery and you start seeing a change of behavior and a change of attitude and, you know, like we said, finding fault with everything and everybody, I think it's desperately important that you point it out to them. You might not want to, because a lot of people who are in love and have children have that eggshell syndrome where you walk lightly on everything thinking you're going to be the cause for them to use. When they get angry or they get disappointed, that can't happen. That will never be your fault. So I think it's necessary to say, I see a change in you, and why aren't you going to meetings, and why aren't you going to your therapy, and why did you miss another psychiatrist appointment, and a lot of things. So to me, I think that you have to be honest with them, because like I've always explained, and a lot of you know that, you know, denial is the number one curtail of addiction and alcoholism and any dependence that's, you know, not healthy. And, you know, or if they switch, you can certainly always go back and say, you know, you might switch into an eating disorder or gambling or gaming on the internet, whatever. You have the right to point it out that they're not living the life that they should be, and that they were in recovery, and look how good their life was. You always have to go back and point that out to people.
I have a question, Candy. When you start asking people or telling them, "Hey, you might wanna go to a meeting," does that set any kinda tone or precedence for what's gonna happen to them?
Well, explain to me, you mean if they relapse?
Yes, if you're noticing that there's something you talked about walking on eggshells in a relationship. When you when you decide, "Hey, look, I think I should mention this to somebody. Hey, maybe you should go to a meeting or something." How does that how does that work? I mean, it seems like they would flip either they would go to the meeting willingly or get into
I'm
denial even worse.
happy. You just busted them, so they're not going to be tickled about that. I just think you need to phrase it as, you don't seem as happy as you were, or if they, this is new recovery. It breaks my heart to see you so unhappy, and it just seems like nothing is okay with you anymore. Or um, if it's somebody that's been in recovery, just say, I see such a big difference in you since you've decided to take charge of your own life. I think it's really a crime that you don't go back to what works and how, whether you want to or not, it was certainly good for you and your mental condition and your physical condition, certainly your spiritual condition. So I would hope you would reconsider something you're finding fault with.
That sounds
And
awesome.
I mean, if it's therapy, when people start going to therapy, they go off the rails, or they don't visit their psychiatrist and they're on antidepressants. I
That
think if you love somebody, you have the right to point it out that it doesn't look like things are going in the right direction.
that's so true. It just depends on how they're gonna take it, but I guess it depends on how you present
How,
it to them.
yeah, I mean, I would never suggest somebody goes, so you're not going to meetings anymore. You better get back. I mean, that's not going to get anybody anywhere. But having the love and compassion is that you've seen a difference in how unhappy they are by not doing what was maybe taught to them or maybe showed to them, and just say, I want you to be the best, version of yourself. And I saw it, and I don't want you to get mad that it looks like you're slipping away, but I think that you're missing a big part of your life again.
That's a good
And you can
idea.
certainly, if you think somebody's high and they've relapsed, you can certainly call them on it, because you might save them and they think they're getting away with it again. And you might be able to go, if you're having the same behavior you did before you were in recovery, it scares me.
Now, once a person's in recovery and they start earning those, I think they call them chips. If you have a slip,
Yes.
do you lose your chip?
No, you don't lose your time. If I went out, I have 38 years of sobriety. If I drank tomorrow, by the grace of God, I won't. Wish I could find some wood in this house. Hold on. Um, I I think that um, I have 38 years of sobriety. I just have to start recounting and figure out what made me think it was necessary to drink or use. Now that happened a lot during COVID. People were alone. They were stranded. There was no in-person meetings. They thought they could get away with it. They were, people got sick and were by themselves with COVID. And a lot of people relapsed and went out. And, but they didn't, you never lose the time that you've gained and you've worked in recovery. You don't have to give back anything. You just got to start over and work your way back up.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'd hate for somebody to think they threw all of that away just for a slip.
Oh my God. Oh my God, no. And the only, we have 12 steps, and the only step that I would have to say they need to go back and redo is step one, which is I'm powerless over the alcohol or the drugs, and my life has become unmanageable. That's the only step they need to go back. And they need to stand up as a newcomer and be honest. I mean, this is a program of honesty and openness and willingness. And if you're keeping this a secret, then it doesn't look like you really have intentions of staying. sober. You're just kind of walking through it. But if you stand up as a newcomer and everybody welcomes you back and there's no judgment, which is really true in anonymous programs, then I think that you're back on the right track.
It feels good to be on the right track, doesn't it?
Oh my God. I just witnessed being an interventionist too many people that aren't. I'm getting ready to intervene on a very, very successful woman on Friday. I mean, on the pre-interventions Friday and Saturday. And she has an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old, and you should hear the torture in these kids' voices. I mean, she gets mad and she gets so drunk that she forgets that these are her children, I think, and just slams them. I mean, she's so mean. And she can get sober, but boy, she's going to have a lot to make up for being a blackout drinker and not knowing what she said, because those kids don't understand blackout drinkers. So,
did they have another adult in the house, or did they have to come to terms with
they
this
have-
on their own?
They have a grandfather that's 83 and a father who is actually putting the intervention together, and got brothers and a mother and a father. Her father-in-law lives with them, and he has a cottage in the back of their house, and she goes out there and harasses him, screams at him.
Has
what's he
anyone
doing living?
videotaped her actions like
Oh,
this?
they always. I insist upon it. Yeah, they've got about. They probably have hours, but I only need about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes.
And this is all
Yep.
going to be shown to her during the intervention, or has it been shown to her prior to?
Oh, it will be shown during the intervention.
Wow.
Yep.
I hope that's her wake up call when she realizes this is me.
Yeah,
this
she's
is what I'm doing.
treatment. Yeah, no, she's never been to treatment, and she's always been a partier kind of, but she likes to drink, and but she just has gotten totally out of control in the last year and a half. I hear it all the time, particularly when women turn 50 and they're going through menopause and they're going through life and, getting older. It's a very, very common scenario. If you have alcoholism in your family, too, it really escalates.
Wow. And do you think there's something going on in her life that aided leaning on the alcohol, or do you think that there's something else?
Well, I think we all have a mental malady. I don't think you do something constantly and damaging that could kill you if you're in your right mind. I think it's certainly a brain disease and a mental malady to abuse things, and also genetic. But I think turning 50, and she started, messing with the different fillers and Botox. And she has a very high-profile job, and the hormonal imbalance is horrible too. And I think she's just miserable. And why she's miserable is because, eventually she'll realize she created the monster and she doesn't want to live with her. So between a therapeutic process and 12-step and going to a great treatment center for 30 days, I hope she'll refresh and get back in her own life.
I hope so too. I mean, it sounds debilitating when somebody has turned to substances or whatnot to cope with things.
Yeah, well, I'd say she's been a big drinker for a long time. It just hasn't taken away, and now it's taking away. I mean, she doesn't buy bottles of alcohol. She buys airplane bottles, and she buys like 4, and then she has to go back and get 4 more. Then she has to go back and get 5 more. Then she passes out, comes to, has something to eat, and goes back and starts over again. So
wow. I just got back, Candy. I know you can't see me.
She works occasionally. But, so far, Job has said nothing to her. So and
Thanks for
Schmick's
helping,
Law.
Rob. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, okay.
talking about having a family have to, live with a person that's in the
Using.
middle of their disease and a tragic story. So
Yeah, there's a lot of tragic stories with families. And the beautiful part is once somebody steps through the doors of recovery and they're willing and open, and like you said, spiritually and emotionally growing, everything turns around and the blessings come. It's a long, hard road, but life can take off all over again. You rebuild, you restructure, you reinvent, you get healthy, you look better, you feel better, you've got new friends, family relationships, dynamics change. I know from experience, and so do you. And that's what the message is that a lot of people still can't grasp or comprehend, whether it's fear, denial.
get out of their own way. And, you're the last one that knows you're sick. So
Right.
I know that.
Well, that's all the denial.
It's a lot. You have a lot longer period to get totally dysfunctional. You might act alcoholically, but drinking alcoholically can take decades. Where with drug addiction, it can take a matter of days. It can take, I happen to, oddly enough, know a heroin addict of 30 years. And I can't even get into, how this man uses, but it's very strange and it's nothing like anybody else I've ever heard of. But, and
he's still alive today? Today? They're still alive today?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And high functioning and very successful. And you'd certainly recognize his name. But it's one of those things where the addict that he is very, very odd. Everybody else is, you pick up heroin, you got to have a death wish.
Well, I have a cousin that overdosed on heroin when I was a little girl. Yeah, well, I have it in my family.
Yeah, well, heroin is heroin addiction is down 68%.
Well, because fentanyl is number one now, right?
It's cheaper. It doesn't have as long of a life, but it sure the hell is cheap. That's how they made it.
But more and more
cheap.
Yeah, but more and more people are getting access to it, and more kids are dying from it and overdosing. It's sad. Regardless if it's pills, if it's heroin, if it's alcohol, if it's cocaine, if it's vaping, like you're saying. And we were talking a few months back when we did a smoking show or a vaping show. Why don't you review the seminar you went to at UCLA I believe it was UCLA, talking about the dangers of the chemicals in the vape that are going into the lungs, burning the lungs even at a higher rate than regular tobacco.
Well, people who vape don't think they smoke. That's a big thing. I quit smoking a year ago. Well, but you're just sitting there sucking on this vape. And because nicotine has been not proven for carcinogenic, the tobacco and all the chemicals that go into it to make it burn even, and all the rest of the junk that went in it is what was carcinogenic. So they think that they're safe. And it depends on whether if you have an electric vape, it gets really hot, and the more that you inhale it, you're getting little bubbles in your lung. If you want to know the real damage of it, you can go on YouTube and look at Dr. Timothy Fong. He has two fabulous. He's one of the head research psychiatrists at UCLA, also private practicing, also an expert in gambling and gaming. And he's a magnificent man and brilliant. And he
say his name again, please. Candy, say his name again, please.
Timothy Fong, F-O-N-G, Dr. Timothy Fong, UCLA.
Okay.
And he did two videos for us, for one in recovery for the kids and the parents. And one of them's on vaping and the other one's on cannabis and cannabinoids. because of the horrible psychosis that comes with pot now. So
Yeah, the
um,
THC
it
levels are
just
nothing like we knew 50
everything
years
along.
ago.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, there are people that now say, if you have to do this, please smoke and don't vape. And then if you're vaping pot, it's like, good Lord and a half, double trouble.
Well, in a way, hold on a second, because when I was in college, we would use bongs. Isn't bongs sort of like vaping then? Because we put the pot
No,
with the hot water,
I know
right?
that when you're vaping pot, it's
Yes, Hassan, we've
liquid.
been doing this for 30 years.
It's oil or wax, and it's like 68 to 87% THC levels. It's humongously high THC levels. Where if you're smoking it or putting the actual bud or the plant in a pot or in vaping or whatever, you're usually, and when we were smoking it, you were getting, if it was great shit, you'd get maybe 4%. So the average was 2.5 to 3% THC. Now you're getting 87. Think about it. Yep.
87% THC. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing because the levels have changed so much, and that's where the psychosis and the hallucinations and the addiction and the overdose comes from.
Yeah, horrible addiction.
Hassan,
you know,
Hassan, hold on
I
a
used
second.
to be thrilled if somebody just smoked pot. I'm not anymore.
Not with what's going on out there. We have Hassan who keeps texting. Hassan, why don't you call in? And yes, I used a bond in college. Why don't you call in instead of texting? Why don't you call in and join the show and talk with us, Hassan? Just call in at 561-623-9421. Yes, bongs were the real big thing when in the 70s. I mean, this is 2024, 45 years later. It hasn't changed. What's changed? Technique hasn't changed. The ingredients have changed, and our society has changed.
Well,
and what's legal?
Yeah, the whole plant has changed. It's high tech now. And I knew people that certainly grew pot and smoked pot in the 80s and late 70s and stuff. But this is a technical advanced situation where you can go into a cannabis store and say, I'm having anxiety. You smoke this. I can't sleep. You smoke this. I have the headaches. You smoke this. It's all very tuned into particular situations since it's medical now in some senses. And then you could go in and say, I want, the strongest shit you got. And it'll just annihilate you, which I've had to witness. But it's like it's branding and names and different locations and different altitudes, and it's big business.
And when you're vaping, you've got flavors. Put the line out again, please, Rebel. Keep that going because I'm trying to get it. So Hassan, why don't you call in at 561-623-9421, and anybody else that's in the chat that if you'd like to call in, I'd love to speak with you, and so would Candy. So I don't know what's going on. It's not getting to him, but I would love to have more people call in. It's just that the line is busy because Candy's on the line, so I guess you can't, which is why he's texting. But there's flavors, and do all the different flavors in the vape have anything to do in affecting people's lung capacity?
They're all just chemical driven. Why do you need mango and cotton candy? Well, because the nicotine itself is very bitter and tastes horrible. So you have to kind of cover up that. And, a lot of people started vaping here in California because menthol cigarettes were outlawed.
Yes.
And so was flavoring. So they went to vaping with menthol and mint.
Oh, God. But, I don't miss that part of life. I don't miss chasing a liquor store to get some Kahlua, or I have to stop and buy 1 or 2 packs of cigarettes to keep my addiction going, or if I smoked 2 packs a day during an exam period and all night long, I would chain smoke until I finally stopped. It's like, for what? I even gave up chewing gum during lockdown. Remember, I mean, I was buying gum crazy. And with crazy behavior, it was like, I'd get a little bit of the flavor, blow a few bubbles, and then throw it away and start another piece. It's all part of this addictive, compulsive personality disorder that I had to chew my way through things. Now I just drink a lot of water. I don't think we can bring people onto the show, right, Rebel? Because Candy's got the one line that's available. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
They could try to call in. We could see what I could do.
Hassan, see if you can call in 561-623-9421. Now, this man, Hassan, goes back. He was in my infomercial, Candy, back when we filmed in 06. So he's been with me for many, many years. Yeah, he sells caskets around the world. He's a pastor. And in the infomercial, he was in his uniform talking about the Wicks of Wisdom from the Man of Cloth. Yeah. So he's trying to call in, but he's been sending in a bunch of messages through the chat about the bongs and the water and the different addictive situations in the personality and the family. I mean, he knows all the answers. Alcohol, drugs, being mind-altering chemicals.
He's on the line.
Oh, good. Hassan, hi, how are you?
How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Meet Candy Finnegan, who couldn't be on the show visually today, but Candy is a professional interventionist and works with alcoholics and addicts in recovery all the time. And we do this show every Wednesday. And I know that you've been following the content today about the slips and understanding, when people stop and start. And in your church, you call it slipping and dipping. So you deal with a lot of addiction in the church?
A lot of addiction in the church and friends and family. And then I used to be drinking and smoking marijuana and this and that. So that's where the slipping and dipping comes in.
That's a cute term. I've never heard that one. Well, you and Candy should talk, and maybe Candy could do a seminar or something with the church and help inspire people to get sober from the professional perspective. You're doing the spiritual perspective, and it is a spiritual, mental, and physical disease that affects all parts of our body.
It is. Now the first thing, when people are in denial and before they get to that slipping and dipping, I feel that they have to go and do a self-diagnose, like look at themselves in the mirror and then say, what can the drugs and alcohol do to me and what can it do for me?
Yeah, but they don't look at it that way. It's more of an escape, like Candy was saying. Go on, Candy.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, one of the primary diagnoses of addiction is that you don't know you have it and you always think you can quit on Monday. There's very, very little self-diagnosis in any part of addiction unless you overdose and then you might pick yourself up and use the next day. So self-examination with addiction is very difficult.
It is, because drugs and alcohol they're mind-altering drugs. Like I was taught. Can you hear me?
So much of them self-medicate, so there's other things going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hassan, what kind of numbers do you have with your congregation that have the addictive persons that you're trying to help lead them to either a 12-step program or some therapy to get sober? Is it a large number of your congregation?
It's over 1,000 people.
Are they all afflicted?
Are they all what? I didn't hear you.
Are they all addicted or having problems with substance?
No, some are still addicted, and some of them are in denial where they don't want to talk about it, or as soon as they get out of church, they go home and start using and stuff like that.
Candy and I are only an hour. Candy and I could drive out there one day and talk to people if you want. We wouldn't mind helping. If you wanted us to drive out, we could arrange a Sunday to come out there.
Oh, that'd be nice.
let me say one thing.
Hmm.
First of all, intervention was started by an Episcopal minister. And it's a very young process. It's actually 1964. And he would do all of the funerals, and he'd have the family sit around in a circle, and each person would share their most wonderful story and how much they loved him. And he suddenly thought, why am I not doing this before they die? Before they drank themselves to death, or before they took pills? And that was kind of the beginning of the drug czar, and also the beginning of intervention to, stop the process before it literally did kill you. And he always, his name is Dr. Vern Johnson. And Dr. Johnson always said there's two things that will not stop addiction. One of them is love, and the other is God, because you can't pray your way out of addiction. You have to surrender to it so that you can get back to your real self. And God never ignores you, and he never punishes you, because addiction is punished enough. And so he turned to me when he trained. I was lucky enough to have him train me at the almost last 5 years of his life. He wasn't really doing it, but I snuck in there. And he said, and when people say, but I've been praying to God that this won't happen to my loved one or myself, he said, you always turn to them and say, and I'm doing his work. Because if you are an intervention and you're not a spiritual person, and you don't take somebody into that intervention with you, such as a higher power, you're most likely going to fail.
That is the truth. You are absolutely right about that. They will fail.
Yep.
Well, Hassan, if you need help for people that are in recovery, and especially the professional side, me professionally for 20 years, and Candy, we can find a time, and we'll drive out to Pomona, and we'll join you, and then we could be like a special contribution through the morning service and offer suggestions or hope, or a private ability to have somebody confide in somebody like Candy or me, and maybe we can help the congregation, because you can't do it yourself. You've got everything else going on. But if you bring in somebody else,
have a guest sermon, or
yeah,
and then if they want to stay more after, and if you have if you have coffee and something after the service,
reception,
you can certainly, we don't have to talk for 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, but let me know, Hassan. We'd be happy to come out there, okay?
I will. I'll definitely let you know.
All right. Thank you for joining us. I got to start closing the show, but stay in touch, Hassan, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for always contributing and always being there. God bless. Thank you. Bye.
And what's the lady's name? Candy?
It's Candy Finnegan, Finnigan.
Nice meeting you, and hope to see you soon. And thank you, Linda, and have a great and wonderful day. Bye.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's Hassan. I met him, or he found me on radio back in 2000, maybe, when I was doing radio. And then when I did a TV infomercial, he was part of it with the Wicks of Wisdom in his uniform. But what's really wonderful is he's so spiritual, and he's so helpful. He started a casket company years ago, and now he's selling internationally. So people, if you're watching and you're interested in caskets, go to Hassan's Caskets. Tell him you saw him on the Dr. Linda caskets. Yeah. All sorts of colors and sizes.
I want to buy one.
No, you don't need a casket. I'm just putting it out there and promoting him out of gratitude for who he is. So if anybody's listening and needs end of life,
there are a lot of people that are addicted that go to church hoping that they'll find the help they need there, and they will find comfort, and they will find peace while they're in church, but when you leave, you're taking yourself with you. So
that's exactly what he just said. They're okay in church, and then they go home and drink or get loaded or take pills or whatever. And that's why I will talk to him, and you and I will drive out there and see how we can.
And you know what he needs to do? He needs to have a 12-step. There's a Christian and 12-step together, but he needs to have 12-step meetings in his church.
Well, we can talk to him about that. That's a great idea. He's out in Pomona, so he's only an hour away. It's not that far. But we're at the end of the show. What, you're breaking up?
I said if he could stay where he preaches and they could come to 12-step meetings there, and it's their church, it's the best laid plan.
Exactly. You and I will talk to him about that. We need to close the show. This went fast. It's already the end of the hour here. This is Recovery Wednesday. I'm Dr. Linda Salvin. You're listening to Candy Finnegan, who couldn't show up on the video today. And thank you to Rebel, who piped in while I had to take a phone call. And we're here. You can find me at Dr. Linda at lindasalvin.com or my website, lindasalvin.com. And Candy Finnegan, where can they meet you on AOL, and what's your email address?
Candy Finnegan at AOL, FINNIGAN.
.com. We'll be back next Wednesday, folks, with another topic. I hope you have a wonderful week. Feel free to email one of us if you need some help or direction or suggestions, or you want to be on the show or whatever. We're open. We're cool. Okay. So remember, everybody's addicted to something. We've got some solutions if you're open to surrender to them. Okay. Have a great week, everybody. Candy, hold on. And Rebel, thanks. Take us out. Tomorrow, I have a woman who will be testifying to who stayed out of jail for 20 years due to the fabulous Wicks of Wisdom candles that helped her with her legal problems. Take care, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Recovery Wednesday. You can reach Dr. Linda at 888-509-1077 or at lindasalvin.com and Candy Finnegan at candyfinnegan@aol.com. Need a breakthrough of your own? Ready for answers or insights nobody else has? Reserve your own one-on-one in-person chat. Dr. Linda isn't just for other people. Dr. Linda gets results for you. And it's easy. Contact details are on screen now. Just click on lindasalvin.com or call toll-free 888-509-1077. That's lindasalvin.com or toll-free at 888-509-1077.